Have you ever taken a personality test? I've taken the Myers-Briggs and DISC tests, but so far they've never been used to determine job eligibility. The new HBO Max documentary Persona, The Dark Truth Behind Personality Tests is available now. Does it provide some good insight into what makes us tick? Taking a personality test can provide useful insights into our sense of self, but many may not realize how deeply embedded personality assessments are in everything we do. So first off, this mainly takes a look at the Myers-Briggs personality test. There is mention of the Big Five, and it looks at that test a tiny bit, but the majority of the coverage and information is on Myers-Briggs. We get to hear from some experts and researchers regarding the tests and even people advocating for change, but the majority of the content comes from interviews with people that have been negatively affected by their personality test results. These aren't vindictive people out to ruin a company because they didn't get hired, but instead they're trying to raise awareness about the unfair use of a personality test in the hiring process. We get some good background on how the Myers-Briggs test came about and even how it was developed. And there is a bit of a deep dive into the founders of the test that lets us into their mindsets and their motivations. I found this pretty informative, but it's also working to highlight how the personality tests that are held in such high regard aren't all-encompassing, nor do they fully capture what a person is or what their abilities are. The tests might be slight predictors of how someone will be, but it really misses the mark when it comes to judging qualifications for employment. There's one story in particular that is engaging and then it's heartbreaking. We have an interview with a young man who is flagged as not hireable based on some answers that he gave, but his previous employment totally disproved what the test showed. He was denied employment, but that began the research and fight to figure out how companies can legally use this data. I found one portion of this documentary to feel a little bit like science fiction, but it's being piloted right now. It's a personality test that utilizes a live video feed and it captures the applicant's face as the questions are being asked. Now, if you've seen Blade Runner, it's a bit like the test that Deckard administers. There's a lot of good questions raised about this new form of interview, and they bring up some pretty valid points, and even how just the facial structures, the facial expressions between men and women, or even people of different nationalities, can wildly skew the results. The documentary is produced well and has a good look to it. I felt that we also get a compelling story as it illustrates how people are now having to learn how to take these tests just in order to even be considered for a gig. Now, one thing that I found really interesting, and totally I acknowledge that it could have been just a marketing angle, but a Myers-Briggs representative was interviewed and stated how they are completely against their test being utilized as a determinant in hiring. Now, the runtime of this is fairly short. It's just under 90 minutes, so it goes by quickly. The documentary does also have an agenda. It's not playing in the middle of the road. This one definitely is advocating against the use of personality tests when it comes to the hiring process. There are some interesting questions raised, especially when it comes to ethics, and I think it also presents some good ideas to mull over. I don't think this is a documentary that demands that you push everything else aside to check it out, but the information is pretty interesting and it's compelling. There's no sex, nudity, or violence, but there is some profanity. I recommend checking out Persona, The Dark Truth Behind Personality Tests on HBO. So I'm an ISTJ according to Myers-Briggs. Do you know your profile? If you know what it is, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.